What are you laughing at me for? From the UEA badge. Right. Everybody joining us online for this special Coffee and Geography mini episode here at GA Conference 2025. We're currently setting up now the session on how to use GIS for connective geographies. So I've got the wonderful crew here from the GA ICT SIG or Special Interest Group. And I just want to welcome our live audience here for this session for the Coffee and Geography podcast. Honestly, there's more people in the chair would suggest. So for those of you watching live, we'll be starting around about 3:30. And the way that this process works is that there are 5-minute, pretty rapid fire kind of mini things. It's almost like a teach me, I'd say. It's almost like I can see my colleagues are nodding just in front of me. So it's almost like a mini teach me where it's a very, very quick dash of good practice and things that occur for teachers, not just geography teachers and not just teachers in the United Kingdom, but teachers anywhere can utilise for incorporating the geographical information systems within their schools and their teaching and learning. So just sit back, relax, go grab yourself a brew. We'll be starting in about 2 minutes or so. And please, if you're here, say hi in the live chat and enjoy the presentations. So everybody here in the room in Oxford, say hi to Alistair joining us from Northern Ireland. Alistair's actually one of our presenters today, but couldn't make it here in person. Also, please say hi from to Peter joining us from Munich. Yeah. Fantastic. So hi, folks. Thank you for joining us online. And we'll be starting momentarily. Please be aware, folks in the room, we are live streaming this. So if you do decide to ask questions, cheer or heckle, it will be recorded for prosperity. And for the coffee, prosperity. Well, definitely not for mine. But for the Coffee and Geography podcast. So I will now pass you over to Kate. Are you kicking us off or Sophie? Pass you over to Sophie.
Okay, it's with great pleasure that we welcome you all today. We have a very tight programme. We literally have 5 minutes, which goes all the way through to our 50 minutes. So it's going to be strict timing. Everybody knows I've got to go like this and they've got to move on. We have a couple of recorded ones and we have some live, so it's a combination of both. We're very interested in any questions you have, but not until the end if you want to stay afterwards. So thank you very much in advance.
Mine's very short and sweet. I took an idea of the conference theme of connecting geography. This is about personal geography. It's for younger children, key stage 2, perhaps year 7, with a excuse me, opportunity for them to have an introduction to digital mapping skills, assuming that they've never used them before. So here's my personal geography. That's where I live. That's my home in Staffordshire, and I'm now here in Oxford, and that's one of my connections. So I give the children, pupils, students, a paper-based exercise like this. They fill in some of their connecting places. They start with their home, move on to school, might be where they're born. So mine goes home, where I was born, which is Cheltenham, where I went to college and then university, Weymouth and Dorset and Southampton, where some of my family members live, Merthyr Tydfil, brother used to live in France, some of my workplaces, so Staffordshire, and so on. And a lot feature holidays, some of my connections. So I've been, my favourite country is Italy, and so on. Then they can explore some of their connected places using digital maps. They will find a place on a map using the search engine or the search facility within whatever website they're using. You might use a postcode. They then play with the map, zooming in and out, planning, exploring what's around their place, looking at the place using different types of maps that most of these websites allow you to do, perhaps using the aerial view facility, using map layers so that they're putting different sets of data on top of the different maps, might overlay a map on top of an aerial view. They might plot a route from one of their places to another place. They can calculate distances between places as well, and they could annotate the map with different routes and whatever, and then might print it. It doesn't really matter what of these, because for free to use websites, Google Maps that we all know, Bing Maps, OpenStreetMap, and so on. If you've got an opportunity to have Digimap or ArcGIS, they're probably the best to use, but obviously with funding cuts and so on, that might not be appropriate.
Now we're off to Scotland. You'll have to listen carefully because it's not that loud, but we have a pre-recorded session on the Scottish census state.
Hello, my name is Oxford from Scotland, and what I'm going to be showcasing is a couple of sites which demonstrate digital tools focused specifically on Scotland. My aim is the specifications for the GCSE. They are UK focused, but much of the focus on the textbooks, and I think on the provision of resources is very England focused. And so I think try and broaden students' understanding of geography of the UK. Hopefully these websites provide an example. First one I'm going to show you is the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation. So I'm sure many of you will have used the English and Welsh indices of multiple deprivation. The Scottish one operates slightly differently in terms of the data it collects. However, it's very similar in terms of the scale in which it operates at. It has fewer zones that it includes, with only several thousand, as opposed to 32,000, I think about 6,000-7,000 in Scotland. However, the website is pretty good. So I'm just putting more out there. If I zoom out slightly, one of the things you can do, I quite like, it shows really the population distribution and how the population is mainly around the central belt here, Glasgow and Edinburgh. And what's particularly handy is you can go somewhere like Glasgow, for example. You can compare with previous years, so 2016 and 2020, to enable comparisons. You can then just select the most applied 20%, so you can compare spatial patterns of inequality and deprivation, or you can go just to 5%. So there's lots of different opportunities to explore data temporally and spatially in that respect. Also, as with the English one, on the right-hand side, it shows different zones. You've got income, employment, and work. Not completely comparable with the English one, but it adds an extra dimension. The second site I'm going to look at is census. Again, this was done slightly differently to England. It was postponed for the year due to the COVID pandemic. However, the data is now starting to map very similar in many ways to the ONS mapping. And so what this enables you to do is 2022 data showing up here. Again, you can go to, let's just go back to demography and migration. You can look at things like country of birth or year of arrival. So from a migration perspective, it's quite interesting to look at in different areas where you might have impacts on migration. Again, you can also look like health data, general health, and again compare different areas, rural versus urban, and more data being added to that, slightly behind because of the years made. And the final one I want to show is over here with the National Library of Scotland. Now, this is my report. It's a brilliant site just for showing a variety of different maps with this sliding bar, which enables you to compare different areas. And again, I focused on Edinburgh here. You can bring historical maps. For example, I've got a 125,000 performance survey between 1937 and 61, and you can compare that with the latest data. And again, what it enables you to do is just see that variation. You can, I think, particularly interesting seeing increase in urban areas comparing London versus Edinburgh, London or England versus Scottish cities, looking at that spatial change over time. It also just then hopefully adds any dimensions looking at the industrialisation in that those areas. The three sites, to summarise, we've got the Scottish Index of Multi-Deprivation, which is SIND.SCOT. We've got the census data, which is Scotland's census.gov.uk, and the National Library of Scotland maps.nls.uk. Thank you very much.
Thank you from Scotland. We're now going to look at climate change, 3 simple tools. Over to Heidi.
Thank you. Right, so I'm going to do 3 very simple tools. The context, this is what I've been working on with my year 9s, my year 10s. Actually, I don't think anything particularly new, but we've integrated more bits into it. So the first one is Teal tool, which actually is quite old. The original version of, I think, thank you, Kit, for introducing this one. So this is the original tool. You can see at the bottom down here, you can click on it and it runs through from about 1950 to 2024, and you can check colours, you can see how temperature changes, wind, precipitation, solar, carbon emissions. They've now added to it. You've got the, you can click on it and you can see individual countries, which is actually really useful. So I've actually got year 9s clicking on it. You can take these factors on and off, so they can go down to the right down to data. So what's the highest precipitation of this country or whatever. So we've been looking at those individual data. I haven't encouraged year 9s to do this, but there is the Tealbot now, so you can ask questions to Tealbot and it does answer them. You can see at the bottom it gives you some ideas, maximum, average, compare. So those are a suggestion that you can use, but they have updated it with this. So there is now an additional section. You have to write ef.teal.tool.earth, but it allows you to look at things like, in this case, it's set to energy transition, but you could also set it to demographics, it tells you education levels, to climate risk. There's a whole range of these different factors which you added into the overlay, as well as the top one, which is the temperature, precipitation, etc. Okay, so that's the first tool. So I've been getting year 9s to analyse this as part of their climate change unit, because I've completely updated it and we've been using this as part of their actual work. Second one, also thank you, Kit, because I found this one on your website. So this is a really good map. If we are then taking that further, is there a link to extreme events? This lovely map here, interactive map, you can actually click right down into them and you get information, like you can see at the top, about the different extreme weather events. There's a whole load of analysis you can do about what types of events are happening. Are they more severe, less severe? What exactly is going on? You can really break that down. There's an additional added section to this, though, that came in February, which is about the effect on crops. And again, you can click on these and they tell you the type of impact, where it is, links to websites that tell you about the event further. So there's further analysis you can do. So you can look at it from a kind of like an overview, but then you can drill down into certain events and get students to look at that. Not so much year 9, but year 10, what I've been doing the forests unit. There's a word forest one, right? And you can see here on the sides the land cover, land use. You can select a whole range of different things. This one tells us the gain and the loss. You can see where the gain and the loss are. But one of the things that we do is we look at the real forest. And this one's quite a nice layer because it tells you about lots of fires. You would expect fires in the Arctic, but they can actually see it is real and not just making up. Okay, thank you.
Our next one is with James, which is introduces you to Google Studio. These are the websites, and sorry, here's one we've done before.
I'm going to show you how to use Google Studio. It's a web-based animation tool that allows you to create animated content using Google 3D and stuff like that. So first of all, you need to go to the Google Studio website. There's a Google login. Click on Black Project. It's a trial one. First decision you make is how long you want your video to be. And this is filming, it's used to film in 30 frames per second. So just for the purposes of today's demonstration, I'm going to put in 600 frames and therefore a 20-second video. So I click on start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick somewhere around the world to zoom into, and I'm going to go into the Himalayas because I know the 3D visuals of the Himalayas are really good. And I'm going to start with this kind of animation. I'm just going to put it full screen for a second, which is shifting F11 to make it a little bit bigger. And this pane in the middle is what your video will be looking at eventually. So when you're happy with the viewpoint you want to start at, you're going to click this button here, which says keyframe all attributes. And at that point, it's basically saying 0 frames into my video, I want to see this image right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it forward to a few seconds. I'm going to go to about 90 frames through, which is a few seconds in, and I'm just going to zoom in a little bit into this landscape. So I'm going to say that over 91 frames, I now want the camera to sit in this position here. So again, I'm going to stick this one here and keyframe all the attributes in there. This time, instead of zooming in, I'm actually going to ask it to be put on a bit of a slide. So I'm going to move it a bit further forwards. But this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt the video like this so that now I've got a big angle into this closely landscape. Again, I'm going to click on this one, which is telling me that 185 frames through, I want my camera to be like this. And basically, what it's going to do if I zoom that back up to my start point is when I press play here, it's going to take me from my start point, fix, zoom in to the one that's closer, then tilt as I wanted it to in the background. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to move around, perhaps dip into this valley down here. Move forward a little bit first, dipping back down into here, and then add my attributes again. If you wanted your video to stop, because obviously my video now at the moment is coming in, then tilting, then moving slightly further forward. If I decided I wanted to stop one point, maybe that's because I wanted to talk about this particular area for a while, I can just move on and have exactly the same attributes in on there, which means that as I play the video, it will do exactly the same by zooming in, tilting, moving around, but then just pausing with my final on here. And I'm going to finish off by going right down to the bottom. Forget things in there before finishing my video back up. And that would be quite a speedy move to such a high elevation, but for the purposes of my demo, you'll get highlights. I've moved it in, tilted, zoomed in, paused, then further into the and zoomed all. Now it takes a little bit of time just to get used to what actually looks good when you export this, and all you need to do to get the video out at the end is just click the render button and it'll come up as a video that you can embed elsewhere. I learned to use this really quickly, and the website for the studios here is a set of tutorials that Google do, where they talk you through the basics, which is pretty much what I've just done on here. There's another video on here, it's called Easing, where I soften some of those transitions a little bit, and this bit helps you really target different parts of the site. And those are about 7 or so minutes apart. Really nice if you want to go in and have a look at basically it's landscape, but also works really nicely in urban environments. I used it, for example, for a field trip when we were down Brick Lane, and just sort of slowly meandered my way through Brick Lane, showing where we're going to stop at Curry House, where we're going to do an environmental quality survey, and it just flew its way through the landscape. Hope you enjoy.
Right, our next presentation is going to talk through some real-time GIS, Joe's top 3 connections.
Okay, so I did this last year. I took you through some of my real-time GIS, and I like using real-time GIS in my classroom because often it's really easy to pick up. It's free, it's online, it's very visual for the students to do. You can often think, well, where do I put it into the lessons? But it's often something you just click really into the lesson. You're discussing something, so you think, oh yeah, we'll show that, and then you can really visualize something that's really going on. It's relevant, it's up to date, it really engages your students. And so the first one I'm going to go for is windy, which many of you might have heard already. But it actually is more than just visualizing your weather patterns. Because now I've discovered there are lots of other things on the Windy app which I didn't know existed, and I've found that recently. So let's just start off with this one. I didn't realize until when there was a big hurricane in the USA earlier this year, you can actually now track the hurricanes. You can actually follow the tracks of the hurricanes. You can actually see the wind picking up, and you can see where that storm is going to track at the time. And then you can zoom in and have a look at some of the parameters that's taking place at the same time. This was taken last week, so I could see obviously where the hurricane was going to be, and see where it was going to be moving across by today, just off the northern coast of Australia. Another one I found on Windy was this one, which is related to particle matter and looking at sort of intensity of droughts. No, they're not particle matter, drought intensity, and really interesting to look at the droughts that are in the north of Europe at the moment. You know, we think of a place which has drought as being somewhere which is very hot and very dry, and then we see obviously we are in drought conditions, and the north of Europe's in drought conditions. This one here is the particle matter one here, and this was taken last week as well, and we can actually see maybe air patterns, so we can see where all the particle matter is. This is nitrous oxide across Europe, and which parts of Europe I would like to be at this moment in time, because of nitrous oxide particles. And again, you can zoom into that as well. So that's my first app, which is very visual, and it's obviously the wind patterns are playing all the time. So this is just a snapshot, but you can actually see things that change. You can zoom in and out, you can use the time scale, you can even turn it 3-dimensional as well. Second one I found recently, which is one which is looking at urban heat maps. We're looking at city-specific climatic data. This is focusing on urban heat islands and looking at temperature variations across cities throughout the world. This is really interactive, and it's great if you're teaching about things like urban stress, maybe sustainable cities, you want to focus in on your area. This is London, last Thursday. And you can have a little chat and a discussion with the students about why are some areas dark in colour, why are other areas light in colour. And then you can show them another map to show where the parks are, show where all the main buildings are. Obviously, you can see the clear map of the river there. Very interesting to see which parts of London have more heat, which have less heat. So I quite like that. But this is available for many cities around the world. And again, this then took me on to air quality. And two apps I've got here, which actually kind of link together. One is the World Air Quality Index information. This offers looks at the global air quality, and then you can go in and look at individual cities. So I decided to look at Oxford. And so this is the air quality map from last week of certain stations around the UK. And you can see there's a lovely one in the middle of Birmingham, which was very high, probably very close to the M5. I would imagine at M6. Not very good at that time. But then if we zoom in, we can actually look at Oxford. And in the centre of Oxford, we can have a look at on Friday what air quality was like in Oxford at that time. And you can actually focus in and you can look at that over time, and that shows you over 2 days, and you can see how that's varied as well. Differences between day and night, different times of day are really useful to look at. Variations according to weather is quite interesting to see how does that affect air quality. Here are links you can have with specs. I try to link it into where it's relevant for actually teaching for GCSE. If you teach international and other qualifications, it's there. And you've got some links there to build up ideas. This could be a starting point before we generate some hypotheses, for example. Look at what's going on, go out and test it and collect it.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to have a little look at the GIS curriculum hub of resources, which I have recorded because I found it very difficult to keep to 5 minutes.
I am Sophie Wilson, PhD Geography tutor at St Mary's University in Twickenham. It's a great pleasure I share the GIS curriculum hub of resources. To access this, you can use this QR code. This is part of an Erasmus funded project. We have a website, and the resources all come from the online training course developed part of the project in order to provide teaching training for teachers to teach about climate change with the help of GIS. If you look at the course, there are a number of sections. They start with information about climate, moves on to the ideas linked to cognitive load theory and load transfer instruction, the support for creating your own case studies, and there are a series of lessons that are searchable. You can search this by tool, by difficulty, or by age group. Going back to the Curriculum Hub, this is set out in a series of sections. It starts with pedagogy. Here, we would advocate that you use the framework in order to structure your lesson. You also need to consider the GI pedagogy step model, which moves from instruction to modelling and up to presentation and assessment. Little triangles represent checking understanding, and the idea is that you can move up as well as down steps when sequencing the material. You want to have a link to the ArcGIS Living Atlas map. Here is the link, just key in what you're looking for. Curriculum sequence is crucial to this, as is an acknowledgement of what level of GIS competency you have as a teacher or your pupils have. Here, this suggests that you should look at these levels in relation to the steps. The concept cube helps you to sequence the working menu in relation to the memory of long-term prior knowledge and future learning. The GIS viewer then allows you access to simple layered maps with information. It's a world atlas, political maps with a fact file. You may also like to look at the Google Earth, where you have Google Voyager, is a collection of interactive maps from around the world. My favourite is MapMaker, made by National Geographic. Here, you look carefully, you've got the opportunity to make them 3D or 2D. You then simply add a layer, selecting a category of your choice and pressing the button. Once made, you can then choose different base maps, and then you can save your map and add a legend. If you want to look at World of Change, a very useful resource is the Earth Observatory NASA maps. Here, it looks at snow cover, vegetation, total rainfall, land surface temperatures, as well as sea surface temperatures around the world. We also, on the hub, there are a series of physical geography maps. These can be used as layers for any of your maps, simply adding them to them. Similarly, there's some human landscapes, migration maps, tectonic hazards, and environmental maps. These also look at plastic pollution. If we look at climate change itself, this section is a really useful one that looks at resources from the internet that can support you as a teacher learning about climate, key definitions, key information. Teachers are often very worried about this. If you like the idea of making some comparisons, my carbon map is a very useful tool for looking at the background, responsibility and vulnerability of different places around the world. You can compare this by continent, emissions, CO2, or even population growth. The interactive country profiles allow us to make comparisons between countries. The vulnerability index is very useful. Here we have the IPCC 6th assessment report, where it looks at the impact, adaptation and vulnerability of different places around the world. It can vary considerably. And if you prefer, something I like is the Climate Zero Central. This compares the climate shift index. This is the average temperatures on the land, as well as sea surface temperatures on in the oceans. It allows you to see to what extent is above average. And finally, if you want some more information, there are some blogs to follow. And the how-to section at the bottom of the curriculum hub, you'll see it shows you how to make surveys, story maps, how to get into 3D mapping, and a little bit more about maps and data. So I hope this GIS curriculum hub will help you with your teaching about climate change.
Right, over to Brendan now, and he's going to look at Seabed 2030.
Hello everybody, that's me. I'm over here as well. In a minute I'll be a disembodied voice again, I'm afraid. I just want to remind you of a really good word that we often forget. I love that etymology when it comes to geographical words. It's this word here, bathymetry. How often do we use this with our students? I would say more often, okay? This is from the Greek word meaning deep. So we're measuring the depth of the oceans, bodies of water. And it's a much neglected area. And that has come to notice of a project called Seabed 2030, sorry. And what they're doing is they're trying to make sure that we move from the current situation where we only know about 25% of the Earth, the ocean floors have been mapped accurately to 100% by 2030. Quite an ambitious project, very useful. Some of the early data is now available on ArcGIS Online. So if you've got ArcGIS Online, you can look at this. I'm going to demonstrate how you can use that in a minute if you're doing, say, tectonic hazards, where you can do cross sections across plate markings. So it includes vertical exaggeration options. The vertical exaggeration option I'm going to show you is 3.5. So you just need to bear that in mind. So here we go. Disembodied voice coming up. How do I get that started? We've got that to do.
This typical working view of scene enables us to explore the elevation detail of all the land masses because the data is built in to do that. What we've added to this is a new layer, which you can see in Layer Manager, of bathymetry data, organised by an international collaboration called Seabed 2030, including a group called Geographical. If we float over the lake, we can see it says global topography elevation, which means it's bathymetry data showing the elevation of the sea floor. And we've chosen to add the layer that's got the 3.5 times vertical exaggeration because it just makes the profiles in the bathymetry easier for us to see. However, this does mean that the elevation measures are all multiplied by 3.5. So we need to bear that in mind if we're looking at the elevation numbers for heights above or below sea level. So let's switch to presentation mode to have a look at these slides. So we start with a global view, and you can see that the plates are labelled. There's a layer for plates and a layer for the margins in bluey purple colour. So we're bringing the world back around to the Atlantic, and we're looking in particular at the line down the middle of the Atlantic, which is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a divergent plate margin or a constructed plate margin where plates are moving apart. So to the west, the North American plate, for example, is moving away from the Eurasian plate to the east. But as we zoom in, we can see how the Mid-Atlantic Ridge is labelled along most of its course on the ocean's layer. The red line you can see is the first of 4 transects we will take across different plate margins. So that will help us to generate an elevation profile across the Earth's crust at that place. And when you zoom down to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, you see that the seafloor isn't smooth at all. It's actually a whole lot of underwater mountains, many of which are volcanoes or ex-volcanoes, and the bathymetry layer shows that particularly well. So let's generate a transect across this ridge. To do that, we need to dip out of presentation mode and go back to the original format. And we'll just close the slide manager. And then we go to the scene tools. We click that once, and then we look for the elevation profile tool, which is the 4th one along. If we click that, it opens a panel, and it's asking us to generate an elevation profile. If you just switch off these two, line and layers, and then we're going to select the line. So we say we're going to select the line. You'll see a cross appears here, and it's as simple as this. You just literally click on the line, and an elevation profile is generated across that transect. So we need to think about what's happening along this transect, and we can do so by moving the cursor across the elevation profile. As soon as I go onto it, you can see it's showing me where I am along the transect. And notice as well that the height is actually negative territory. We're dealing with the depths of the ocean here. What we see if we move across the transect, we watch that little orange dot. The sea floor rises, so the sea is a little bit shallower, quite a lot shallower, as you move toward the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. And that's because there are these mountains around the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, many of which are volcanoes or ex-volcanoes. But what you'll notice right in the middle of the ridge, if I just move the cursor to the end, there's a kind of gash in the middle, and that's where the 2 plates are moving apart. And there's a rift right down the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, all the way down the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. What this means, of course, is that what we see to the west of the ridge is the North American plate actually being formed and moving off towards the west. And what we see on the eastern side of the ridge is the Eurasian plate, with material being added to it from the mantle in the form of magma that reaches the surface of the crust, which of course is the sea floor. And that becomes new crust and moves off the Eurasian plate.
That's it. The other 3 margins are on an extended version of that, which will be available probably through later in the year.
This is
Right, we're next over to Bob, and he's going to show you the 330-300 school sustainability study.
What it is about is with schools having to have climate action plans next year, and Kit will say something about this as well, I suspect, is that this is an opportunity to use GIS, not just in geography, but in the whole school's curriculum. What it is, there's an approach which says 3-3-30, which is basically it says that it's an idea by Cecil Konyajic, which simulates that from a point anywhere, for it to be a really class of a really good green area, you should be able to see 3 trees. Okay? In the area, you should have 30% cover, canopy cover, and within 300 metres, you should be able to find half a hectare of green space that is usable, that is accessible. And so this is something which I've tried, and I'm going to try to get my school's sustainability advisor to try it with the next year actually with an idea. So what we did, so the idea of using GIS for this is you can use survey 1, 2, 3. It's an easy way to go around school at different points, different layers points in the school. So if your school's got numerous levels to it, what can you see from the ground floor? What can you see from floor 2, from the top floor? And then, so there's an ability to develop spreadsheet skills, use survey. How do you display the information? What's a good way? What background? Do you have a base map? Do I use satellite image? How do I show it? What's usable? What's easy to understand? So if you're going to try to present to the school SLT saying, well, actually, those trees should be chopped down because they provide an important cover, then it gives you about how to use it. So secondly, it's how to work out the 30% coverage. Now, it's simple tools. Draw an area using GIS Online. You can create a drawn area. You can do that in other software packages as well. And then put a grid on it. And then either by simply just working out how many squares have got green, tree on in them, how many haven't. Did a quick example and of our school grounds, which is the boys' schools this bit, or the girls' schools this bit. We're actually very lucky. And then see there's somewhere within 300 metres of school that's actually usable space. Put a point at a point, then using analysis tools like creating a buffer. So it's simple GIS that is very doable. So put a point from the geography office, 100 metre radius, and we're very lucky. But next to us we've got King's Heath Park. Now you can use an area measure tool, simple tools that can be probably done Digimap just as easily. You can measure the area. Does it meet that? Is it above that half a hectare boundary? So in terms of it's a simple GIS approach. Take your symbols, map them. That can be easily done in ArcGIS or Digimaps. Work out the area, the tree coverage. Now there are tree layers you can get, but they cost. And then put it together. So to what extent? Yeah, it does, and definitely 3 trees, 30% coverage. Now, how do you use this? It's a tool, and not just using GIS just for the sake of it. It's a tool that if you were the local council looking at green space, you do GIS. So we're giving this to students an opportunity to develop tools that they might use in the real world. Sustainability is the big push in schools, particularly climate change initiatives, and every school has to have a climate project and a climate advisor by next year. Some of the staff. This is something that can be easily done wherever you're a teacher or in university. You could be your local area. So it could even be used by a scout troop, a guide unit could do this themselves. You don't have to be in school even, but it's simple. And then you've got the end, or what's the outcome? It's a starting point. Actually, this area, we need more trees. There's not much. How can we make them? How do we define green space? What's accessible green space? So there's lots of spin-offs to get critical thinking involved. GIS is just a tool to enable it. Okay, and if they're in the real world, the government planner would be using GIS. So.
The National Education Nature
I'm going to go one more than you, I'm afraid, Bob. So what Bob said was great, but it can be even better. Because there is actually a national scheme funded by the DfE to allow you to do exactly what Bob said, which is brilliant, you should be doing this, but actually contributes towards the national effort in terms of climate action. So you knew this, didn't you? You knew that, all of you, if you're based in England, you have to have a climate action plan and a name sustainability. You knew that, didn't you? Yeah? Right, so the good news is that with the DfE, there's 4 support things which come at no cost at all for your school. Let's Go Zero was brought into this partnership. They existed beforehand, but there's 3 DfE funded schemes of climate ambassadors, which I'll talk more about tomorrow at 11:30. You've got Sustainable Sport for Education, which is a self-service thing, but we're going to now look at the other sister project, National Education Nature Park. So it is amazing. While I'm getting ready with this, come on, tell me which city in England does all of the educational estates add up to twice the amount of? Yes, at the back.
Birmingham.
Birmingham. Let me guess, that was Katie Hall, wasn't it? Yeah, brilliant. Right, so so Katie is actually one of the people at Israel who works on this with these folks. And so I'll very quickly, because no time is short, is that it is amazing, right? So what the whole premise of the National Education Nature Park is a collaborative climate effort. It's a shame this ain't working, Kate, we sort this out. So I'll just go back to the presentation. But what it is every single one of these green dots is a school that has mapped their school grounds, and some of them have done something called habitat mapping. Now, which is where they actually go around the school grounds and they kind of mark where the trees are, but where other natural features are, whether they put them on as a school themselves, maybe a wildlife pond or stuff like that. And if you zoom in, what happens is that if they've habitat mapped their school grounds, a bit like what Bob was just showing, then this changes according to different proportions of the types of things. Kate, shout them out, give us an example of the categories. Yep. You're in the room, I'm going to pick on you.
Line of trees.
Line of trees.
Box.
Oh, David, thanks, David. Brilliant. Yeah. Okay, so I've also killed the remote. So, the other thing is the resource bank. It is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. So this resource bank can take you to a filterable tool where you can look at what stage of this process you can be on, the key stage you're working with, all the way down to nursery and further and early years, and up to key stage 5. Here's 4 examples that work with GIS and specifically. So go check those ones out. Now, this one doesn't, but I love what Kate does every single year is the kind of like low-tech paper-based stuff which introduces the concepts of GIS, right? So it gets kids familiar with layers and stuff. That is fantastic. So if you want to get kids interested into that kind of stuff. My favourite is the and Katie's favourite is the Hidden Nature Challenge, suitable for all age groups. Challenge for you is is it Dave who does that? All right, so please give Dave more work by having a go at the Hidden Nature Challenge. Just search for it, take it, you do it on your phone with Survey 123, and it goes on a beautiful map showing these kind of like categories that you can do. And it's great, in particular for the very youngsters. So it's incredible. And the most important thing, I think, well, as for those of you who know me, is it directly links with your school's efforts to your climate action plan. Directly, because these are one of the sister projects to help with that DfE climate change and sustainable education strategy. If you want to access the people who run this, the RHS, so climate ambassadors, regional hub managers like myself, we work in very close partnership with these folks. In fact, we're pretty good friends with each other in the east of England. So if you were to contact me, I will put you in touch with them if you need to. But if you're not having a look at least the resource part of this, you should be doing that at bare minimum. Even better if, buzzword, even better if you go and do the habitat mapping and the school mapping. If your school is not on that map now, you need to get it on that map. Okay, so there you go, the National Education Nature Park.
Right. Well, the final one we're going to look at is using apps to explore the mantle. Hopefully, this is going to be really exciting. We have our online presenter,
There he is.
who we hope will be live. All over to you, Alan.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yay!
From,
Wave, everybody.
Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Right, greetings from a very wet Port Russian County where the rain is falling on the roof of my caravan at the moment.
1 second, it's not in mode, in presentation mode.
Yeah, just remove that. Yeah, no problem. So, we're going to go a little bit deeper than where Brendan took you. He only took you to the seafloor. We're going to go even deeper than that itself, right down to not quite the center of the earth. We're going to show you a wonderful little GIS tool that will help you to take a field trip into the mantle itself. Now, let me set a little bit of context for this for you. This was the article for teaching geography, all about this, but this app wasn't available when I wrote this article, so it's giving you a little bit of an update. And of course, I was delighted last night to win the award. Thank you, Brendan, for backing up in my awarded with. So thank you so much for everybody that voted for that. So a little bit of substantive knowledge out of the way. First of all, how do plates actually move? Well, of course, by now everybody I hope knows that we have to slay those zombie ideas of the tectonic convection currents and instead replace that with a more modern understanding of slab pull. The cold, old, dense plate sinks into the mantle and it drags the rest of the plate with it, kind of like a chain sitting on the edge of the table. You dangle the end of it off the edge and it pulls the rest of it along with it. But whenever we're focusing in on these destructive plate margins, as geographers unfortunately like to call them, there are a few misconceptions still that we need to slay. Particularly this question, what exactly is being destroyed at a destructive plate margin? You take a look at Google image searches for destructive plate margins and they all seem to agree in one thing. The thing that's being destroyed is the subducting slab. But it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Because if it's created at a constructive plate margin, at a destructive plate margin, it must be destroyed, right? Wait, what? Hold on a minute. Because if we've just said that it's the subducting slab that pulls the rest of the plate, if we melt that subducting slab. So how do we know what's going on? This is the GIS tool that I want to show to you. It demonstrates this thing called seismic tomography. The whole idea of seismic tomography is like an ultrasound for the mantle. And it allows us to peer into the mantle without having to travel all the way down. A quick explanation of how it works. The earthquake occurs and it sends out seismic waves that arrive on time at the surface of the earth at some points, and then at other points they seem to get this little speed boost that makes them arrive at the surface of the earth earlier than expected, and these ones arrive on time. So what's happening at this little location here where they get that speed boost? Well, it's inferred that that represents the cold, old, dense, subducting slab. And the seismic waves will travel faster through that denser material, and therefore that allows us to see into the mantle itself. Now, here's a little cross-section from South America. Here we've got the trench, we've got the Andes. I wonder, can you picture what would be happening in the mantle? What are you going to imagine you're going to see? Maybe something like this. There's a cold, old, descending slab going down into the mantle. But what does seismic tomography actually reveal? I'm going to show you a map of the mantle using seismic tomography. Here it is. I wonder, can you see the relationship between those two? There is our descending slab. But I don't want to give you just one single map. I want to give you a fully interactive GIS atlas. And we're going to use this wonderful little website called Tectoglobe 3D. So this is relatively simple for us to use. We first of all go up here to the data that we want to display. And I want to put on the seismic tomography. We're going to pick the first of the models up here, the GAP P4. And I also like to display the hypocenters, which is the American name for the earthquake focuses. We're going to come in here to Japan, and we're going to draw a cross section here. And to draw that, we need to come up to our actions, and we just draw a cross section. Click, click, and lo and behold, appearing over here is our cold descending slab of lithostrike plate, not getting destroyed, but descending down into the mantle. And these earthquake focuses kind of confirm that, because this is the brittle lithostrike plate that is brittle enough to snap to cause those earthquakes. And we have just taken a field trip into the mantle itself. And because we can take a field trip through this GIS map, we can do an interesting little comparison here with the Japan Trench, and we come over here to the Mariana Trench, to some of the deepest trenches in the world. I wonder if you notice the difference in the morphology of the trench here and of the slab. This is a very deep trench because the slab is cold and old, and it is subducting down at a very steep angle. So we can start here just simply by just doing that little bit of a clicking, not just to turn the subducting slab of the mantle into just this model that every plate boundary looks exactly the same. We can now go and take these field trips, and we can have a look at exactly what's happening in different plate margins. And just in case you think the 2D version isn't impressive enough, down here at the bottom, I can turn this into 3D. And I can, in front of my pupils, demonstrate that whatever it is that we call this as a destructive plate margin, why we call it that, I don't know, because look, the slab is not destroyed, it is descending in underneath and dragging the rest of the plate with it. There's lots of other little bits and pieces to play around with this. It's wonderful little GIS tools that allow you to take field trips to the mantle. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Thank you very much for coming to listen to our 7+ idea.
Well done, one. Well done. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We hope you enjoyed that. So there's some really key kind of things there with regards to kind of taking climate action and whatnot. I just want to thank everybody who participated. We actually ended up having about 40 people in the room, which was great. Thank you very much, Alistair Hamill, joining us from Northern Ireland, and our host, Sophie. Alistair, you're amazing as always. Thank you so much for beaming in, and we're obviously sorry that you couldn't be here in person, but you're not just here in spirit, you're actually here virtually. And now we've also got some photo bombing going on, or video bombing. You know, it's going out live over the internet, don't you? Thank you also to people who contributed in the chat. Peter, thanks for joining us from Munich. And yeah, and now this is on YouTube. You can rewind it and check on things that you may have missed or you want to have another look at. So thank you very much for joining us. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Are we doing a group photo? Bob's gone. Bob's gone. James is gone. Oh, well, it's you can do it over there. Yeah, no, that's gone offline now.
Sorry, what?
Looks like it. Very good. Yeah.
You guys
My
are
bunch of pick and mix. GIS pick and mix. That's what we want.
Can you see me?
And then for a few seconds, you'll be
Okay,
there.
yeah. Okay. So the camera's on, yes.
Right, I've been told about what's
Nothing down.
because you're the expert on planning central stuff.
Oh, yes, I enjoy playing with that, yeah.
Yeah, so, Brendan been told me I had to say hello to you because I'm from the National Centre for Earth Observation and I use it a lot. So at some point,
Oh,
I need to get
awesome.
in touch with you.
Sorry,
So.
what's your name? What's that thing? Let's see that.
Brenda will share it.
Oh, very good. Catherine.
Yes,
Very good. Nice to meet you, Catherine.
so Brendan's got my details, so
I'll pass on, yeah.
I'll pass them on to you.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alistair.
Thanks,
Thank
Alistair.
you for sharing that. Maybe we can at least make a here performance of your.
It's not online. It's not live anymore.
Oh, isn't it? Okay.
Thankfully.
Cheers.
Okay, enjoy
Thank
the
you.
Bye.
I'm just going to do now. That's all right. Let's do this. We'll do it on my own.
I don't know, I've got to put in photographs.